Yeah, what's going on, guys? It's your man, DJ Caveman, in the building for The Porch, episode 3, with the legend, Tommy DeNucci. Today we're talking about Army of the Damned, which I just finished watching. After I left the gym, I threw it on. I found it. I couldn't find it last night. If you follow me on the Insta Snap, I couldn't find it last night on the Amazon Prime. So, Amazon Prime, you got to get your stuff together. Put that movie back up so people can buy it and watch it. So I watched it today. Found it on YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. Hashtag label out. And so now we're here, back on the porch. It's cold and blustery outside today. So our landscaper guy hopefully took the goddamn day off because we don't need him all in our mix today.
Yeah, man. I saw him outside just kind of like gently petting his leaf blower, angrily looking out the window like, these motherfuckers, they got away with it today.
He's back
next week. But it's nice to have no leaf blowing, no lawn mowing, no kind of distractions whatsoever. And I'm here with Daryl. I'm excited to be on the porch and dive into Army of the Damned. This is a movie that I recently watched this week with John Del Ponte, who was my production designer on the show. He came by, and we ended up finding it on iTunes. So if you're listening along and you want to check this out, you can plug in iTunes. You can rent it. I think we rented it for like $4.99. I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. You don't have a copy of it? And believe it or not, like, we had done a convention not too long ago. It's actually coming up. It's called Rock and Shock. And I had a few copies, and we sold a lot of them at the convention, but I never repurchased any. And we had talked about this on one of the other shows. Like, when you direct a movie, they don't, like, send you a care package with a bunch of DVDs. So, me, like everybody else, I found it on iTunes. I pulled it up there, and John and I watched it. And it was just so much fun to bring back all those memories, and great cast on this one. A lot of faces that people know and names that people recognize. So I'm just looking forward to kind of going in and, you know, performing some retelling of events that took place back in spring of 2013, I think.
Oh, so that was just a few years ago. So this is your second feature. So after you do the first movie, you get a little traction, do they just call you up and say, hey, Tommy, I got this new movie I want you to write? Or did you sit down and you were like, I'm going to write this movie, and then they just pick it up?
Well, the cool thing was Chad and I, we had really hit it off at this point. We had been working together for a couple of years, and he'd kind of seen my development from an intern to a guy who could come in and actually write and direct a feature. And he wanted to keep things rolling, and we had gone to a convention. I'll say it again, we just said it, Rock and Shock. We were at this convention which Woodhaven Productions had gone to like every year. That was like our annual convention. It was a big horror show. It took place right here in Worcester, Mass. They still do it. They do it right around Halloween. So we were there at the convention, and Chad was looking around, and Michael Berryman was there, and Tony Todd was there as a guest, and he's looking around and he's like, hey, man, wouldn't it be something if we kind of put a few of these big horror names together and did almost like an Expendables of horror? Like, what would that be like? And I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Get a couple of horror movie icons, throw some pop culture icons in there, and then, mix it all up into a big salad of mayhem. And that's kind of like what I ended up doing. I kind of went and I worked on the script, and I said to myself, okay, well, we knew that this wasn't going to be a super big budget. We kind of determined that, hey, if you can get this movie made for X amount of dollars, yeah, well, greenlight your next picture. So that's all I needed to hear. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do to make this thing, come in on budget? And I knew that a location's very expensive. You can run into a lot of problems with that. Here's the problems that people don't realize about the money that you can get from, incur, that your production can take on from a location. It's almost a guarantee that when you make a movie, you're going to destroy some shit at that location. You're going to bust windows.
Right.
You're going to scrape walls. The paint's going to get chipped off. You're going to scuff the floors. Furniture's going to get damaged. you're going to bust shit up. It's messy. It's like you got a herd of elephants running through a building for an extended period of time, several days.
Wheeling stuff in and out.
Shit, and metal and dragging, and people are tired. And it's not their house. They don't give a fuck.
Right.
So, the place gets destroyed. And it's an inevitability. So we didn't have a lot of money. What do? Well, you go to the people who love you and support you the most. You go to your parents. And I said, hey, Mom, Dad, listen, you get this house. I need a scary-looking old colonial. My parents have this colonial, old-fashioned house that's built in the 1800s. I said to myself, look, this is a fine location for a creepy horror movie. I said, what do you guys think? Can I shoot this movie here? And, they saw how long it had taken to me to even get any kind of movement in my career. And I think they were like, well, he's on to something. He just made one movie. I guess here's his chance to make a second one. All right, let's do it. They gave me permission. They moved out. And they, my crew moved in. And John Del Ponte, my production designer extraordinaire, jack of all trades, kind of basically moved in months in advance. We shot the movie in, I think, April, May. John, probably right after the holidays, around January, February, he started coming in the house and we'd start looking in, and it was great. I was sitting right here, where I'm sitting right now on the porch. I had my script, and I was literally writing it based around the geography of my own house.
Right.
Okay,
awesome.
this fight scene's going to take place in the living room because that's the biggest room. So It's got to take place there. The basement, I got this creepy kind of basement. I can make it even creepier. We can build some false walls, which we can later throw some actors through. We'll talk about that later. And, we basically built a giant haunted house. And we used all parts of the Buffalo. We built sets up in the attic. We built sets second floor, first floor, basement, a shed out in the backyard, front yard, backyard, side yard. We're all over this house. And it was great, man. I mean, the way that we utilized the house, I think that was kind of, the best, one of the more impressive things that we were able to do on the movie. And it naturally saved us a ton of money. And with that, and this is where, it was fun, but it got a little out of hand at one point. We'll talk about that as the show progresses. But I had about 8 people living here with me. I had John, and I had Nick Principe was living here, he's in the movie, but he was also a big part of the behind the scenes because he was our fight coordinator, he was our stunt coordinator. And again, I had mentioned this on, I think it was episode 2, Self-Storage. Nick was like my buddy, he was like my big bro, he was a couple years older, he had been on a few movie sets, so he was like the older Boy Scout in the troop that we could, all right, well, let's run it by Nick. He's done this before, So, we felt a
consultant.
Yeah, he was like our big brother. He had done this before. So I had Nick there. I had Joe Cantor staying in my house, he's hilarious. I mean, this guy's he's an older gentleman. He was literally at Woodstock. He's an old hippie, long hair. He looks like a wizard, basically. Picture a wizard. That's Joe Cantor. He's the sound man. So he was there, and a couple of other cast members were staying here. We had people literally pitching tents in the backyard, sleeping in the backyard, PAs. So it was like a commune. This house became a commune to make this movie. And we all chipped in and kind of made it happen. And we shot, 15 days in and out, and it was quite the experience.
Nice. So I'm watching the movie and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces from Self-Storage, Michael Berryman, and Selena Vega, who went by
Thea Trinidad.
Thea Trinidad back in the day.
Yes.
So how did you get? And what's his name there? Tommy Dreamer. Also in the beginning. So you gave them more significant roles this time.
Yeah, Tommy Dreamer, we had talked about in episode 2, is one of those things where I was just so stoked that he could even come in and play a very tiny part in Self-Storage. Really hit it off with him on set. We're just talking about a lot of this similar interest in a lot of things, not even just pro wrestling, but, he's a big sports fan. I'm a big sports fan. We kind of had that going on. He's a Yankees fan. I'm a Red Sox fan. so it was kind of fun just to hit it off with the guy, and also he was really talented, showed up on time, did his thing. So I really wanted to work something for him into Army of the Damned. I knew that he could handle more than what he did on Self-Storage. So here I am. I'm kind of tailor-making the suit to the actor. I'm sitting here on the porch. I'm figuring out the geography of my house. I'm thinking of the actors I want to use. I know I want to use Tommy Dreamer. So I get him in the mix, and I called him up. I said, "Do you want to do it?" And he said, "Of course, Tommy. I'm there. Anything you need." So Tommy shows up, and we start talking, and there were a couple of parts that we hadn't cast yet. One in particular was this kind of young female police officer. She's like a rookie cop. And I had met Thea Trinidad on the set of Self-Storage because she was one of Tommy Dreamer's wrestling students, and she had an interest of acting as well. So as I'm sitting here, I'm writing, I'm kind of thinking about, like, okay, who do I have in my pool of actors that, you know, this isn't a knock to any of these guys, but, like, are willing to work for, like, not a ton of money.
Right.
You know? And at the time, Tommy was trying to break into acting and do as many kind of meaty roles in front of the camera as he could. Thea was doing the same, trying to develop her acting skills. So they were willing to come on and do the project, and I also knew that there were a ton of stunts in this movie. You know, they were going to have to mix it up, and knowing that, I mean, they're pro wrestlers. They can do anything. They get beat up on a nightly basis, and they know how to do it safely so that they can wake up the next day and go to work again.
Right.
You know, so it was pretty cool to know that, hey, if I got these guys on set, not only do I have some really cool-looking performers to put in front of the camera, some faces that nobody's seen before. I have that going for me, and they can do stunts. So Thea, a.k.a. Zelina Vega, this is very much like a before they were famous kind of moment, you know.
Right,
she was just so
she's
eager.
Huge now.
She's a megastar, and she should be, because she's got so much charisma, and you know, it's one of those things where I'm not just trying to super fanboy out for her. I mean, you could tell from day one that this girl has star qualities. You know, she just had this ability to kind of light up a room, and very funny and charming and smart, and aside from that, had the work ethic to show up on time. I don't think I ever heard her complain once on this movie. And we put her through some crazy stuff. I mean, she had a lot of stunts, and we did a live cast of her entire arm, which is like a long, challenging, kind of annoying thing. And we had her doing these crazy stunts with like literally table saws that were live going off, which, you know, it was safely done, but it had to be done in such a way where you got to pay attention when you got live saw blades going on set. And she easily could have opted out and been like, hey, can I get a stunt person for this?
Right.
And it was, you know, it was like, no, I can do this. No problem. So she was just great to work with. And, you know, there's no surprise to me that she's as big of a star as she is today, because she had all the qualities that a star has. Right. You know, it just hadn't been fulfilled just yet. And it's kind of cool, because I remember on the show, some of the banter was, like I'm going to try out for WWE soon, and you know, to be going up there, and it was kind of cool, like hearing about, you know, her on her way on the path to get to the WWE. Right. So, you know, look, it goes to show you, I mean, she was working hard for a long time to get to where she was, and it didn't happen by accident. So shout out to Thea. Shout out to Zelina Vega.
Come on the porch.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on the porch. It would be really cool.
She's still taking our phone calls.
You know what? I got a quick Thea Trinidad story. It's funny. It's hard for me to call her Zelina, because to me she's Thea. But it was probably a couple years back, and it was on my birthday. And I get a phone call, and I look down at my phone. I see Thea Trinidad, and I say, "Oh, that's nice. Thea's calling me to say happy birthday. That's really cool." And we hadn't talked in a while, and I was like, "Oh, that's really nice of her." True friend kind of thing.
Right.
pick up the phone, and I hear the most recognizable voice from my childhood. I hear, "Is this Tommy DeNucci from Providence, Rhode Island?" And I go, "Is this Mean Gene Okerlund?"
Wow.
And he goes, "It sure is. I'm here with your friend Thea, and she's telling me what a wonderful guy you are, and a great filmmaker, too. You know, I've had my time in front of the camera. Maybe you should give me an audition." And it was so cool. We talked for like a couple minutes. It wasn't even just a quick hi. He said,
wow.
He said, "I heard you're from Providence, Rhode Island. We used to play there a lot when I was with the WWE. I hear, you know," he's like, "I know all about the great Italian food they have up there." And I was like, wow, this is so fucking cool. Mean Gene just gave me a birthday call. So then, you know, I got on the phone with Thea, and, you know, I was like, "Thank you so much." That was probably the coolest birthday call I've ever got. And hey, Mean Gene's in that great announcing booth in the sky now. Rest in peace to Mean Gene. We lost him not too long ago.
Not too long ago. Last year, the year before.
Yeah, so always a big fan of him growing up, and, you know, he's a legend. So that was a great moment from Thea. So yes, she's you know, a true friend, and, you know, one of those people. You know, are we talking all the time? And, you know,
right,
texting each other funny pictures of cats? No, but, you know, I feel like if I really needed Thea and, you know, really had something to say to her, she'd answer back, and vice versa. And she's just an awesome person. So we're happy to see where her career has gone, and the sky's the limit for someone like that.
No, for sure. I'm not even a wrestling fan, and I saw her. I recognized her immediately in a commercial the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
She went on to play a big role in a movie that The Rock produced. I think it's called "Wrestling My Family."
Oh, yep.
So, you know, she's done some more work in front of the camera. So, really great stuff from her. So, and Thea wasn't the only wrestler on set. You know,
right.
We also there was this SWAT team role that wasn't filled, and I wanted, you know, one of the problems on some of these horror movies, sometimes they're so testosterone driven, and you need to find, you know, wait a minute, like, we can't have all men in this movie. We need some little female,
right,
little femininity to the story. So I wanted one of the SWAT members to be this kind of, you know, badass woman. And I was talking to Tommy. I was like, "Do you know anyone who can do some limited stunts and fight work, but is also like tough, and but also, you know, can we believe that she's like a SWAT person?" He's like, "Oh, Maria Canales." And I was like, "Really? We can get her?" And I looked her up online because I had heard the name, because I was a fan of, what was it, like, you know, The Apprentice or whatever, like when that show was on however many years ago. I remember watching it and seeing her on it. So I was like, "Wow, we can get her." And he's like, "Absolutely." And it was a similar situation for Maria. This was after her stint with the WWE. It's kind of funny. It's so funny how life works.
I thought she looked familiar. I was like, this shit.
Well, here's the thing.
Somewhere.
Yeah, so she started in WWE, left the company for a little while, got married, and basically, like, you know, started a family. And now she's back in WWE, which is really cool. Her and her husband, Mike Bennett, they're both on the big show now. So it's pretty cool, because when we were making Army of the Damned, she was kind of like recently removed from WWE. Like, she had kind of just left the company, probably only a couple years or a year or two before.
Right.
And then some time's gone by. Now we're doing this podcast 5 or 6 years later, and she's back with the company. So, pretty funny how that works. But, you know, I've always had a love for wrestling, and, you know, it's just, this was another chance to put a little spice, sprinkle a little wrestling powder into your movie.
That could be like your little tag. There's always a wrestler in every one of the movies.
I bet you if you went down the line,
a majority.
There probably is. Yeah, I think we had a wrestler in every movie. I'm trying to think. Vault. I don't know if we had a wrestler in Vault. We'll get there. We probably did.
I'm sure there's a wrestler in there somewhere. Somewhere.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And if not,
my mind's so trained on the Army of the Damned right now, I can't think about anything else.
So, Zelina Vega, or Thea Trinidad, and Tommy Dreamer, and Maria Canales, all the wrestlers, and then, of course, Candyman,
Tony Todd. Yes. Well, Tony Todd was...
he's like a horror legend.
Yeah, he's a horror legend. And to me, it's kind of funny. Because to me, I liked him in movies like The Rock. You know, he plays this badass commando. Like, you know, militia guy. Like a what do you call him? A mercenary.
Mercenary, yeah.
And he's so cool in that movie. So for me to like know that he was coming in to play, he basically plays the leader of this SWAT team that's designed to come in and handle this zombie situation. Maybe we should give him a quick like one sentence TV guide version of like what the movie is.
So Army of the Damned is basically the short version is some zombie shit happens. People go to where the zombie shit is happening, and blood ensues.
Yeah, it's like a simple distress call to the police turns into some crazy shit.
You know, 911 call comes in, and they get to the house, and then all the craziness happens from that point on. Lots of blood.
Yeah, lots of blood. This movie was the first time I worked with special effects makeup artist extraordinaire Ben Bornstein. The guy's a fucking genius. The stuff he does is amazing. He works on Gotham now. He does like a lot of big shows, and he was the first like true special effects artist that I worked with that could come in and do. They call them gags. You know, like he can build these rigs and gags that like a throat rip gag, or you know a neck pull, or a rib stab, or you know he could do like all of these special effects, because that's what they are, right? It's in the word.
Right.
It's a special effect. It's a fucking magic trick. They're magicians. They know how to do little magic tricks that make it so that you believe that someone's really going through something catastrophic. So it's really cool for me, the first time working with Ben Bornstein and seeing what that was all about. Like it's a science, you know.
Right. Because you have to make it look real, but not too real, but not too...
And keep the artists safe, and keep everyone safe, the performers safe. So it was really fun to see behind the curtain, sort of, and how all that works for the first time.
You got real Michael Bay with the blood, though.
There was so much blood on this one.
Blood, man.
And, you know, that was kind of part of it. We knew going into it. I remember about, you know, this was a 15-day shoot, so I think on about beginning of week 2, Ben Bornstein was like, bro, I brought enough supplies to make 10 gallons of blood, and we're like fucking out. He's like, I gotta order more shit from LA to come in. He's like, because we need a lot more blood. And I was like, get it. And we ended up using 16 gallons of blood. Some specs still are out and about throughout my parents' house. You'll find a speck here and there to this day.
Wow.
Now they're commemorative. They're commemorative specks of blood. So yeah, Candyman, Tony Todd was here. One of the funny things was he had a clause in his contract that he needed a trailer, and this isn't him being like foofy or being a diva. Like that's very standard for a person of his level to you get a trailer. Right. That's like almost like a minimum requirement.
Did he have like a lot of demands?
No, not at all. He wanted we went to the casinos for one day. He liked to play cards. He's a card player. So we took him for a drive, one of his off days, showed him the casinos, had some fun. But we parked his trailer on my neighbor's lawn. And we were like, asked them, we're like, hey, we don't really have anywhere to put this trailer. Cars are lining up and down the streets. We put this trailer on the lawn here. Is that okay? And they were so cool. Shout out to my neighbors. They were like, of course, yeah, anything, yeah. And of course, one thing we did in the beginning, we literally went house to house around the neighborhood. And I, gave a little pamphlet that said, my name's Tom. I live on 101 Tupelo Hill right over there. I'm shooting a movie. This is my big opportunity to make a film. Appreciate you... dealing with any inconvenience for the next 3 weeks. Everyone will be out on such and such a date. Thank you, and if you'd like, feel free to reach out to this email address and schedule a time to come and visit the set.
Nice.
To kind of
make people feel good about being
come on, check it out if you want. Don't call the cops. Thank you. So we did that, and before you know it, we were rocking and rolling. I think the one actor that I'd really like to stop and talk about for a minute is Sully Erna.
Yes.
Sully Erna is the lead singer to the band Godsmack.
One of my favorite rock bands.
Yeah, Godsmack's one of those bands who,
Like, they rock now. Like, they're on my gym.
They're awesome,
list.
man. They keep putting out awesome albums, and it's one of those things where, like, they're still making great music, and they get better and better. Every time I go to a show, I try to make it out to see them just about every time they're in town, and every show I see, they get better. The music gets tighter. So it's one of those things where I had met Sully working with Michael Carenti, because Michael Carenti and him were going to link up on a project. It was going to be a biopic, sort of loosely based on Sully's life. It was like about a drummer who becomes a star, who grew up in, kind of a tough neighborhood and things like that. And the movie just never came to fruition. It happens. Sometimes projects just don't happen. But I remember when we were in L.A. for a trip to meet him, he took us to his recording studio, and we hung out. And
wow.
He had a show that night. We went backstage. And here I am, like 22, 23 years old. I'm backstage at this rock show. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Sully was the coolest guy. He was, like, so down to earth, so New England, and, like, for lack of a better word, real, you know? And I had gotten his email address because I had emailed some materials for this thing, and we met probably a small handful of times, 4 times, 5 times. And then years went by, and I needed a lead for this movie, and I needed somebody who I knew would kind of give it their everything and not have that, I don't know, movie star, like, I need this, and this.
Because Godsmack was big at that point, too.
Oh, so. Yeah, but here's the thing. Sully wanted this opportunity because he really, he loves to perform anything, and acting is something that he's always wanted to do. He's really great at it. But guess what? When you're an international rock star, your time is limited.
Right.
Like, when does he have time to go to auditions, be banging around the industry and making films? He doesn't have a lot of time to do that because he's on tour all the time. When he's not on tour, he's recording an album, and, he does have a family and a life and,
right.
things like that. So it's one of those things where he had been looking for this opportunity for a long time, and I remember him saying that from years past, that, he had wanted to perform at that level, and I believed that he could do it. So I randomly emailed him one night. Here I am, I'm sitting on the porch, I'm doing my thing, and I'm like, fuck it. I got the guy's email address. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? He's going to say no to me, right? And,
right.
Or he's not. He's going to no-sell the email. I never get a response. Who cares? Write him a very brief email. Hi, Sully. Tom DeNucci here. Not sure if you remember me, but I worked with Michael Carenti. I'm no longer working with him, but I have a project that I'd really love to get. I have a project that's greenlit. It's about to go. Michael Berryman's attached. Tony Todd's attached. I'd love to have you on the movie. Can I send you the script? And I sent it, and bro, 5-10 minutes later, I look at my inbox and I see, bing, it's like Sully Erna, and it has responded. And I'm like, holy shit. He responded. Look it up. And he's into it. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm not into that. I remember you. And I'm like, holy shit, he remembers me. This is crazy.
Nice, right? That's awesome.
I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to send you the script. You're the police officer Bridge. And he writes back, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know, man. Like, what about me says cop? Like, I don't know. I'm like a rock star. I got tattoos all over me. I'm known as kind of a tough guy, bad guy, whatever. I'm from Lawrence. He's like, what says cop about me? And I said, well, it's not so much that he's this, like, clean-cut, by the book, whistle swinging beat cop. He's like,
which would have been hilarious, by the way.
Right, if he was like, no, I was like, he's this like tough guy who was a cop, undercover drug guy, narcotics unit from the inner city, and then he gets pulled back to this sleepy little town because it's his, it's his dad's livelihood. That's where his father was a sheriff, and now he wants to, take over his watch, so to speak. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
So basically, what ended up happening was he said, "Oh, okay, that's a little bit makes more sense now. All right, I think I'm in." And he gave me his agent or manager's information, and I gave that to Chad, and Chad and his manager went back and forth, and next thing you know, we had a deal with Sully, and I had a lead. And when I tell you, I very rarely, there are a few actors that have approached a role with more intensity and more focus than Sully Erna. It was a pleasure to work with a guy like that who read every scene and dissected every word and had all these questions and wanted to know specifics about every little bit. He took the time to come to my house a month in advance, probably, before we started shooting. And we went over everything. He ended up even staying down the road so that we could go over everything for a couple days.
Oh, that's what's up.
Got super prep. We did a wardrobe fitting. He wanted it so bad, and it was so cool to see that level of dedication out of him. And it makes sense because performer, he's.
So they
how do you think you get that good at playing music?
Right.
It's repetition over and over and over, and that's what he's used to. I read his book. It's actually a pretty good book that Sully wrote. Great autobiography that he wrote. And I think it's called The Paths We Choose, if you have a chance to read it. It's a pretty cool story, pretty inspirational. Kind of one of those stories that, you come from anything with hard work, right dedication, and a little bit of balls, you can get there,
right.
Taking a shot on yourself kind of stuff. So it was one of those things where I had read in his book about the hours he would spend playing the drums to get perfect, and if it didn't sound exactly like the record, he would start over, and so I got to see some of that crazed dedication almost,
right? A super focus
on this, and it was really cool to work with him. So Sully was great. He was awesome to work with. Would love to maybe get him back in the mix one of these days. Maybe cast him in one of my next ventures.
That'd be excellent. Because Godsmack is still huge, so that's
just saw them. I think what was it? Maybe in August.
They're at Gillette, I think.
I saw them at the casino.
Okay.
They were at Mohegan, and they fucking crushed it, man. It was such a good show. Always an awesome show. So that was Sully, and then the rest of the cast kind of fell in place. Remember, we said Chad got us Tony Todd, which I was so stoked for.
Did they Candyman him the whole time? Did you guys just?
No, there wasn't a whole lot of that
fanboying.
There wasn't a whole. I mean, we just wanted to be around him. Tony Todd's one of those guys that if there were little meters that your cool meter, your cool meter automatically goes up just by standing next to Tony Todd and listening to one of his stories. You just feel cool to be in his company. So everybody was just kind of eager to listen to him hold court for a minute between scenes. But he was awesome, man. He came in and did his thing, and he had some light stunts to do, which he had no problem doing. Didn't ask to be doubled. Has the most enormous shoe ever. We had a hard time finding a combat boot for him. I think
was he a 15 or 16?
No, dude, I think he's a 17.
Jesus.
Or a 16 and a half. It was absurd. I didn't realize he's a big dude. He's 6'5".
Oh shit.
He's a big boy. Yeah, when you see him, you're like, "Hello, Mr. Todd," and you guys can't see this because it's radio, but I'm looking straight the fuck up right now. That's how he's a big dude. So it's cool to have Tony on set. Joey Fatone is a guy that we had worked with in Incubus, and that's Chad's first movie that he did. So Joey was kind of in the actor pool that we had worked with before. He came in, and I knew it required, that part required someone funny. And a lot of people, this may not come as a surprise to you, but Joey's very funny, very smart, very sharp, quick, great sense of humor on him. And I kind of just knew that he would come in and, crush this. And we improv'd a lot. We got to play around. We'd do one or two by the book, and then the last one I'd be like, "Yeah, Joey, just, give us something funny." And he'd hit me with a little something, and we had a lot of fun together. And he's still a good friend, a true friend. You do this thing for long enough, you realize that you make a lot of acquaintances, but you make very few friends that, like, if they're in town and you're in town, one of you will call each other and be like, hey, let's get dinner, hey, let's meet up,
have
whatever.
a drink or something.
Anything. And Joey's one of those guys. Tommy Dreamer's one of those guys. Sully Earn is one of those guys. So there's a lot of people from this movie that, although it's certainly not the best movie I ever made, by a long shot, but I made lifelong friends in this movie, including Ben Bornstein and a lot of these guys, So it's a lot of, there's a learning process to making films, and we learned a lot on this one.
So 15 days, that's a short shooter schedule. I'm sure there was some mishaps, but what are the craziest, funnest things that happen while you're on the set of a horror movie with 16 gallons of blood and a couple of wrestlers and the king of horror and the rock star?
It was nuts, man. I mean, look, we were all kind of younger guys at the time, and there was a lot of partying going on set, and it's one of those things where it's tough when you're living on set, and there's a lot of stresses of filmmaking, and the rigors of the day can, bring out the demons at night.
Yes, they can.
And what ends up happening is you work 12 hours, you're in close quarters with everybody, you get a little loopy, and let me preface this by saying, not once would I ever allow anyone to drink, smoke, do anything while we're on the clock, during production, and obviously before. None of that shit. I don't allow that. That's dangerous. You get killed that way. No, I'm not even kidding.
Right.
But afterwards, hey, you got to do what you got to do to take the edge off, because it can be edgy during the day. So there was a lot of that. The bell would ring, and the end of the day would come, and we'd start drinking, we'd start smoking, we'd start having a grand old time, and sometimes it got a little out of hand. And I learned on this movie that you're not supposed to be doing that shit. It's not a fucking party every night just because you're with your friends and you're doing something fun. At night, you should be going home, and you should be putting your head into the next day, and you should be looking at tomorrow's call sheet, and you should be doing more specific blocking and storyboarding, and you should be thinking about exactly what the fuck you're gonna do the second the bell rings the next day. And I wasn't doing that, and that was my biggest problem. And not only was I not doing that, but guess what? There's a trickle-down effect there.
None of your cast is doing that.
My crew's not doing that shit. Nobody's really putting that extra time in. And what ended up happening was we just weren't as ready for shit that we should have been. So, it wasn't at the level it needed to be. And we did a lot of stupid things. There was one night, I think the statute of limitations have passed for this, so I can say it now. This was a long time ago.
We'll find out.
And we've all changed. But, we did a lot of stupid things. We had a squad car or 2 or 3 that were loaned to us by a particular police department. And they were legit squad cars. They were older models, but they were legit. They had the lights, they had all the lettering on the outside. So one night, there's a hotel party at the Crown Plaza in Warwick, and it's in David Chokichi's suite, and he's in the movie. We'll talk a little bit about him. And David's an awesome guy, and he's friendly, and Jonathan Silverman happened to be in town because he's scouting something. We went on to do another film with him. And, of course, the rest of the characters there. Joey Fatone's there. And we're all just having a grand old time, having a blast. In this nice hotel suite, having a couple drinks. John Del Ponte's driving our squad car there. Designated driver, I will say that. He was, keeping it straight, because you don't want to fuck around too hard when you're driving around in a goddamn police car. So he's driving us around, and we go in there and have the party, and we're getting a little loud. Things are getting a little crazy with Nick Principe. He's just, he's 6'7". He's giant.
He's a big guy.
A big Viking. It's like the motherfucker can't help it but be super loud.
Right.
You know, like just talking. He's going to wake a hallway up. It's probably like, 1 in the morning, whatever. Security comes. Security guy, comes rolling up to the door. David Chokichi, poor bastard, answers the door. Hey, what can I do for you? And, I don't want to say words per se. It didn't get to that point, but the security guard may or may not have insulted David a little bit. He was like, "Oh, Mr. Baywatch." He's like, "Oh, Mr. Baywatch, acting, getting all loud down here. I know you Hollywood people, you have some fun, but, we got a lot of decent people trying to sleep." He gave us that kind of routine.
Oh, yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. And that didn't go over too well with David. I mean, that wasn't a nice thing to say. I mean, the guy did that show 20 years ago. It's kind of half a slap in the face.
Right.
But maybe it wasn't. Maybe he just legitimately meant it. But whatever it was, the party got broken up pretty quickly. We decided to, all right, let's not push our luck here. It's just, we left. And now we're kind of fired up on the way home. Not John. He's driving. But on the way home, we're like, let's light him up. And, of course, next thing you know it, we're blazing down Oaklawn Avenue in the police car with the lights going, full bore. And we're playing cops and robbers at 2 in the morning in Cranston. And we pull into my driveway, and thank God, because it was so dumb now that I even, say it out loud, to all the things that could have went wrong. Thank God nothing bad happened. Thank God we didn't, nobody get hurt. We didn't get pulled over. The cops saw us going by and said, "Holy shit, what's happening?" and joined in on the chase.
Right.
So many bad things could have happened.
You look behind you and there's 15 squad cars.
Yeah, and I'm like, holy shit, we're the lead car. Who are we chasing? Or are they chasing us? So we pulled into the driveway, and, we were like, okay, good. We didn't get in trouble. It was great. Having some fun. We're laughing our balls off. And we start drinking more and progressively stumble into the crafty area. The area of the garage, which was this 2-car garage, was designed to be our lounge. Crafty table was set up. If you don't know what crafty is, that's basically where all of our snacks are. That's where all the potato chips, the nuts, or whatever, anything. It's all in the crafty
little
table.
snack heaven.
Snack heaven. And we had a cake the day before. Beautiful cake. Big sheet cake. Said an Army of the Damned. For whatever reason, nobody ate it, really. There's only a few pieces missing. Well, one thing led to the other. We're all fired up. One guy throws a hunk of cake at the next guy, and the next thing you know, there's a cake fight happening at 2:30 in the morning. And the cake fight turns into this weird game where we start just taking anything and throwing it at each other. So, whatever we got our hands on, stacks of plates and, catering trays, and I'm talking big metal things.
Yeah.
Are getting hucked at each other. And we're laughing, having a blast. It's hitting us. We're getting mildly hurt, but still laughing. And it was being dumb. This is what dumb shit happens at 3 in the morning when you've been drinking too much.
You guys are all the way in the bag.
Yeah, there's no reason to be doing this, And things simmered down. I've got some great photographs. There's a photo of John Del Ponte walking across the carnage in my garage. It looks like Bigfoot, that famous picture of Sasquatch.
Oh,
in the woods,
yeah.
with his shoulder down. There's a picture. We're gonna start posting pictures from these events, on my director page. It'd be kind of fun to do that. So we busted the place up, went to bed, woke up, and I woke up to a phone call from Chad, our producer, and he's just like, "What happened last night?" He's like, "I'm getting calls from the hotels. You guys are acting crazy." And I'm like, yeah, well, it might be a little blown out of proportion. We had a couple drinks, a little party, get a little loud, but, nothing happened. We all laughed. We were home by 1 o'clock. And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm coming to set in a little bit." I'm like, "Okay." And then I forget, what happened in the garage. And I walk downstairs, John walks down, Nick, we all walk downstairs, we open up. The other guys that were staying at the house are like, "What the fuck did you guys do in here?" And I'm like, "Holy shit." I'm like, what happened? It literally looked like a bunch of elephants were just let loose, electrically prodded to get them angry, and then let loose.
Let loose in the small space.
Just busted the place up. And we had to quickly try to put it together because Chad's on his way now. And we had already had the incident at the hotel that I cleaned up.
Right.
I think he's not mad. And he shows up, and I mean, we cleaned it the best we could, but there was only so much we could do, man. We broke a table. Nick Principe went through a fucking table. I mean, we were doing like WWE shit to each other. Man. It was nuts. So Chad was kind of like, all right, listen, that's enough. You guys got to stop this stuff. You got one more week of the shoot. And he kind of gave us like a head coach talk.
This was like halfway through. It's not even like towards the end.
Yeah, we had like a week to go. And he's just like, look, no more. You know, let's just stop the bullshit and finish this movie strong. And at that point, I was, you know, he didn't threaten me or anything, but I was saying to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is a major opportunity to get to make a movie. I'm acting like a fucking idiot. And,
right.
You know, in some moments, the results show in the film, you know, and that's one of those things that I learned. And we'll talk about how you learn, how you transition. On my next movie, Army of the Damned, I'm not trying to give myself a cookie here or a fucking badge of honor, but it's a fact. On the next movie, I didn't have one drink the entire shoot until the wrap party. And it was all about focus, what are we going to do, what's the next day look like, and I was kind of like obsessed with shaking
that like
this
stigma.
Army of the damn stigma, get the monkey off my back, you know, like I didn't want to like, you know, have that be my thing.
You don't want to be known as the wild director.
No, like that wasn't me, and we were just, you know, we got a little out of hand. Happens. So we learned from our mistakes on the next one. Can't wait to do our Almost Mercy episode. That's going to be episode 4. That's my favorite movie ever that I've ever
Almost
done.
Mercy?
Favorite movie ever. But back to this one, you know, it's one of those things where you definitely learn as you go, but you still take the positives, the great little moments, the great people that you met, a lot of talented actors. I don't want to just like run down a list, but I'd be a fool if I didn't mention some of these people. But you know, Jackie Moore plays the lead. She plays the female, and you know, she's basically this twisted, demonic reporter, but we don't find that out till the end. She did a lot of, again, like working with all this blood. It's just like such a mess, and like she was really cool, real trooper, like dealing with all of these effects. There were guys like I got a chance to work with a lot of local actors from the New England area. Guys like Joe Sirianni, who did a really cool effect and was solid as a rock. Ann Mulhall, who did some casting for me and played a part, which was cool. And of course, Billy V, who is a local legend. Not sure if you're familiar with Billy V. Billy Vigent. He's a guy who's worked on quite a few of my movies. And on this one, he plays one of the SWAT team members. His name's Beefcake in the movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he's this big, broad-shouldered dude. You know, used to be a former college football player, big guy. And there's this scene where we had this wall, and I remember we were just running through, and I was like, Billy, do you think you can run through that wall? And he goes up to it. He kind of feels it, gives a little nudge. He's like, oh, yeah, cuz, I'll go right through this fucking thing. And I'm like, all right, great. I was like, save it for this next take. Blast through that fucking wall. And it was just sheetrock. And I think we scored it maybe just a little bit, make it even easier for him. And it was great, man. We did a shot. He comes through like a fucking rhinoceros, busts through the wall. It was a great moment. One of those moments where you kind of, everybody laughs, has a good time.
First try?
Around. Oh, yeah. He took the whole frame down.
Nice.
So it was cool to work with Billy. Jasmine St. Clair's in this movie. She comes in at the very end and is part of the FBI team. She was super prepared, like had all of her shit together. She was like, I've got several outfits with me to choose from. We've got this, like, and I was like shocked as to like, I was like, I never had an actor like be this on point when they kind of like arrived. But yeah, Nick Principe, we talked a little bit about him. He plays Donald, who's kind of like the fun character that, you know, is there to make everyone laugh. And I gotta say, you know, we talk about learning. One of my biggest mistakes on this movie was a shot that got kind of... It's got to do with Nick. Nick did a very dangerous stunt. Nick jumped off of the roof of my house and landed on a stack of boxes.
Wow.
Literally cardboard boxes.
Just regular...
regular moving boxes, probably 50 of them, stacked about 10 boxes high, all kind of harnessed together with, like, very, very shoddily made with, like, fucking bungee cords and shit. A couple Fernie pads around the bottom. And it's just literally, picture a cube, like 10 boxes up, 10 boxes by 10 boxes by 10 boxes cube. And Nick did a free fall backwards, leap of faith fucking drop.
Wow.
Onto these boxes. And we fucked it up. We fucked up the shot. It's in the movie, and we photographed it, but we didn't get the angle that would truly show off the greatest level of danger. That, like, wow, this motherfucker really did jump off of a high point. The way we filmed it, it looks like he basically, you know, we could have filmed that jumping off of a deck.
Right.
At the angle we got. And we had a third camera. Here's how it happened. And this is everybody's fault. Nobody's taking the blame. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, sure, I'll take the blame. Like, I should have checked it too and not trusted someone. But at the end of the day, we had 3 cameras on this thing, and Nick checked them all out. And Nick wasn't nervous, but he was a little tense. You know, it was a pretty intense thing to do. You know, he had what's called a gator back on, which is like basically a chest protector for your back.
Yeah.
Ain't doing shit when you're dropping from 3 stories. So he's a little tense. And I said, Nick, listen, you're the stunt coordinator. I know you got to do this, but I really want you to check these angles for me. Like, I want to make sure, like, we get this cell. We went to each one. We all kind of, like, thought they were correct. And it was just one of those things that you miss. You know, I don't know if something changed. I don't want to blame my DP. I don't want to blame anyone. It was a bunch of people's faults. But it got fucked up. And we didn't get the right angle of him dropping. And I remember he dropped. There's a crowd of people around. And he kind of jumped a little too high. He almost, like, skimmed it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like, he hit the back end of the cube of boxes. And kind of, like, rode it down like an avalanche of boxes. And it went real fast. And he slammed into the ground. And I remember I sprinted over to him. A bunch of guys sprinted over to him. And his eyes, like, kind of just popped up. And he was like, I'm good. You know, the wind was a little knocked out of him. We helped him up. And he's, you know, he's good. He was ready to rock, you know. He's, certainly didn't want to do it again. We couldn't do it again. The integrity of the structure was destroyed at this point. But, we just didn't get the shot we wanted. So, hey, again, this is a learning movie for me. You learn that, like, on something like that, you damn well make sure you check the fucking frame, you get the right angle, test it with a fucking backpack. Throw a goddamn backpack off the thing and shoot it so we can tell, like, okay, this is going to work. Before you put someone's life in danger and don't even get the right angle.
Right. Or get the blow-up thing, so at least if you miss it, you can do it again.
Why, you have a blow-up doll handy?
I do. I could probably get my hands on something.
You just keep one of those lying around?
I know some guys that can get us some blow-up dolls.
Nothing would surprise me anymore. I'll tell you what, they make a nice stand-in these days. What do we need to pay stand-ins for?
Just have blow-up dolls.
Blow-up doll.
Well, now they have all those, like, sex robots now that look like real people.
Hey, then, you can really get the right angles when you position them for the right lighting schemes. This might be something Hollywood wants to look into.
That'd be hilarious.
I honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised, because they're always trying to cut out human jobs, right? That's the future.
Right.
Why couldn't a stand-in be a drone? Just, like, sit there. Okay. Hey, move him a little bit to the left. Well, as long as you had, like, the correct features that match up to the actor.
Right.
There he is. Nope, doesn't need to eat anything. Doesn't need to take any breaks.
No craft services, no breaks.
No crafty for him.
Plus, now they have, like, CGI, too, so they can just kind of put you wherever they want.
They do, and we'll be dealing with that on the movie that I'll be shooting next. We can talk about that later on. Let's get through the archives first. But yeah, this one did have a lot of mistakes. but that's what it's all about. You know, especially in the beginning of your career, get out there and make the mistakes. Don't be so afraid to like, my early movies need to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect. It's like, no, it's okay. Go out there and fall flat on your face.
You're going to make some ones, you're going to make some movies early on that are like, wow, I never want to show this to anybody, or this is my learning. This is what I show to people, to show them that this is where I was and now this is where I am. Because you can see even the development from the first movie to the next movie, even with all the mistakes, was still like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was better.
I appreciate that, man. It's one of those things where, like, it sucks to get punched in the face, and you don't know that until you get punched in the face.
Right.
And once you've been punched in the face, you're like, oof, I didn't like that. That sucks. Let's learn how to block that shit.
Right.
And for me, this was getting punched in the face a little bit. And being like, oof, I didn't like that feeling. My next movie, I'm not going to get fucking punched like that again. And I'd like to think that that's pretty much what happened. You know, like, we had a little Mr. Miyagi session and learned how to block that shit. So... yeah, that's pretty much Army of the Damned. This was released by Screen Media in 2013. It's out there on IMDb. Featured music by Godsmack, which was really cool. I'd say out of all of my films to date, this has some of the coolest music because we got to use Godsmack music in the movie. Easy for you to say. And basically, it's one of those things where there's something about having a hit song by a legit band, not to knock other bands. When I say legit, I mean, you know, when I say legit band, I mean a group that you could say I'm in the supermarket and someone would hear, well, I know what Godsmack is. There's something about that. It just adds to the production value of your scene. And that's another Sully Erna thing. You know, shout out to Sully Erna for allowing us to use his music, and he got us what's called a gratis. It's a Latin word. I don't speak Latin, but it basically means, like, I'm giving you the permission to use this music at the lowest possible rate. So basically, we had to pay, like, a filing fee, minimal amount, and we had to pay, like, you know, a small agent's fee to, like, make the paperwork go back and forth. And we got the rights to 2 Godsmack songs, and it was great. You know, it was, it might have been one Sully Erna song and one Godsmack song, something like that, but it was 2 real kick-ass songs that we got to use in the movie that certainly leveled that shit up big time. And I can't speak to the importance of having real deal music in your movie. But yeah, you know, we partied a little too much, busted the place up, stole a police car, made it out of there alive, finished the movie in 15 days. On time, on budget. My neighbors might have been a little pissed, but they dealt with it. You know, it wasn't too bad. The whole gang was there. A lot of crew people that I've worked with time and time again. Guys like Bobby Boom. Shout out to Bobby Boom. He's our sound person. We talked about Joe Cantor. This was the first movie I worked on with Brandon Maxham, who Brandon just shot my dog movie, which we'll do on an episode later down the road. And, of course, Sam Eilertson. This was his first time as my cinematographer. Got to talk about Sam for a quick minute. You know, Sam has shot, I think, you know, pretty much like 5 or 6 out of the 8 movies I've directed. So he shot the majority of my films. And this was the first time that we got to work together at that capacity. And it was great, man. We just had such a great, you know, it's kind of like a quarterback and a wide receiver. Like, we just clicked.
Right.
Like, we kind of, like, look at each other and have those nonverbal cues and kind of understand what each other wants. And we just had a blast together, and we went on to do a lot of other films down the road. But just so much fun to work with these people. And, you know, David Gear, he's a producer who's I think he was a producer or executive producer on this one, but he's gone on to... He's worked on a lot of my movies. Our paths crossed many times. You'll hear that name a lot on the show, David Gear. He was a guy who was actually responsible for getting us Tommy Dreamer in the first place, which led to Thea, which led to Maria Canales. So he's always been, you know, a great guy who can kind of connect dots. But this was kind of like the first time we were kind of young guys, and we were working with some grown men, you know. Brandon Maxim, grown-ass man. He was our gaffer, you know.
Right.
Ben Bornstein, although he was a little crazy like us, still like had been doing it legit for a long time. So this movie was just so much an important part of my development as a filmmaker. It was the opportunity to, you know, go big, literally go home, because I shot the movie in my parents' house.
Right.
And just, you know, get to work with a lot of cool people and make some mistakes, but come out okay. Like I said, the movie got released by Screen Media. I don't want to say it was critically acclaimed, but there were quite a few horror reviewers that kind of got the movie and understood it for what it was, as this kind of, you know, horror comedy that's campy, and it's a throwback to horror movies of yesteryear that, you know, didn't take themselves too seriously. And I think that, you know, it kind of checks a lot of boxes for people that just want to throw a movie on and kind of check out for an hour and a half. And
yeah, no, for sure. Like I watched it in my car, so once I started watching it, it kind of sucked me in, and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, and there's a lot of blood, like so it's just like people getting their heads blown off, and yeah, it was good.
Thanks,
it was
man.
good for a second movie too. Like it's like I said, it was better than the first one, and that's really all you.
I appreciate that.
All you want to do, right?
The sophomore slump. We'll call it the sophomore slump.
You know,
you hear that a lot.
With some mishaps and some growth, but that's how you get the growth at the end of the day. So, yeah, Army of the Damned.
Yeah, a couple questions. We actually had someone write in. Doug wrote in.
Okay.
Doug wrote in and asked a question about the movie. It's kind of a two-parter. One was he asked how we got the lighting effect to happen in the house. One of the things that you'll see, there's a demonic presence in this movie, and when the demonic presence kicks in, it's as if it needs all of the power in the house to exist. So it's like as if the wattage, you know, goes from a 10 to an 1,000, and like boom, all the lights beam out of all the windows. And Doug asked, how'd you achieve that effect? Well, Doug, that's a Brandon Maxam and Sam Eilertson collabo. My DP and my gaffer, they basically got every fucking light in the kit and pointed them all at every window. And we wanted to find, you know, there's a part of my parents' house where you can see about 8 or 9 windows. There's one angle where you see a lot of windows. And I said, okay, this is the angle we want to show it off. And we had crew members in each window with the switch, and it was going over an open walkie. We had an open walkie at every position, and it was just like, all right, 3, 2, 1, hit them, and then the lights, everyone hits their switch, boom, the lights come on. And we literally used every light in the kit and, you know, directed it out of the windows.
That was a cool effect.
Thank you. And yeah, what ended up happening too is in post, you're able to kind of finesse that a little more and add a little more of a hue and make it a little more directional. So a little bit of combination of practical lighting with a little love from some visual effects to make it really beam out of the fucking windows. But that was a fun effect. And he also asked what my influences were when I wrote the script. Really, this one was all about, you know, kind of old school horror, a little bit of Evil Dead in there. Just that, you know, kind of that gratuitous gore, you know, gore gratuity.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I think that's something that, you know, all horror fans can kind of relate to. So, but yeah, great question about the windows. And also, quick shout out. This is our first week with sponsors. We want to thank our sponsors. We have Wash Ashore Beer, which is a great local beer. If you're looking for something that's, you know, certainly a craft beer, but it's, I don't know, it's just, it kind of goes with a little bit of everything. Couple quick, I just want to make sure that I don't want to mess up our first promo here. Damn it, man. Drop the ball on our first promo. Wash Ashore Beer Company. It's a non-GMO, certified organic beer, island-born, Massachusetts and Rhode Island brewed.
Isn't all beer organic?
Apparently not.
I guess not, right?
Yeah, if they're shouting that out, I don't think so. But that's Wash Ashore Beer Company. And
local brew.
So it's locally brewed. You can get it at the Greg's restaurant chains. Drop into Greg's, get yourself a wash ashore. Also, we have
Throat Culture.
Throat Culture. That is John Del Ponte. Shout out to John Del Ponte. You've heard us talk about him on the show quite a bit. He is an artist, and he was our production designer. And John has a new company called Throat Culture. You can check him out on Instagram. It's Throat_culture. And it's a lot of cool pop culture art.
The work is good.
Yeah, it's really
good,
cool
so
stuff.
Check it out, for sure.
Yeah, you got to check it out. He does stuff like, these weird remixes where he'll take, like, a Ninja Turtle and crossbreed it with, some kind of fucked up shit and just make it dark. And just really cool stuff. You can check him out on Instagram. I think Daryl's... Is that where you're looking right now?
Yeah, I'm checking out the Instagram right now.
Daryl's going to hit you with the Instagram in a minute, but... you got an Instagram account, check him out, drop him an inbox, and he's just getting started, just getting this company off the ground. So I bet you he'd work with you. I bet you he'd give you a pretty good deal on some artwork if you see something you like and you want to print, you want him to do something from scratch.
Oh, this is pretty cool stuff here.
Yeah, he takes requests.
What's Throat Culture, it's Throat_culture, all spelled correctly. So just look that on Instagram, Throat_culture, and he's got his art right up there. It's exactly how Tom described it. It's a little dark, some mashups of some stuff on here. I don't want to give it away. Go to the Instagram page, see it for yourself, and hit him up. Get yourself. I'm gonna follow him right now.
Yeah, it's good stuff, guys, and he'll work cheap. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 3.
Episode 3 of
Army of the Damned.
Army of the Damned. Find it on iTunes still. YouTube has it for a couple dollars as well. You can rent it. You can buy the DVD on Amazon. So if you want the hard copy, those I think are available.
Yes, you can get yourself a good old-fashioned DVD with Sully Herna and 2 Mac 10s ablazing right on the cover.
Nice. Make sure you get at Tom DeNucci on all the social medias.
Yeah, you can find me at Tom DeNucci on Instagram. That's DENUCCI. And I'm also on Facebook, Tom DeNucci, writer-director. That's my movie page. Check it out. And be on the lookout for this episode coming soon. And I hope it rains every time we record.
Of course. Because the wind's whipping.
It was kind of nice for the show to have the wind.
The wind, right? The wind's whipping across right now in the on the porch, but no leaf blowing.
No leaf blowing, and it went with the dark Halloween effect of this film. So we'll catch you next time. Episode 4, Almost Mercy. It's going to be coming at you next.
Almost Mercy. I'm going to try to get to that one early, in case I have to get the DVD.
Listen to that wind. Let's go. We're going to go out on that wind.
That's a good wind right there. We'll check y'all next time.
Later, guys.